The Hidden Teachings, Secrets Buried in Egypt. A long, long time ago, hidden beneath the hot sands of Egypt, there were secrets waiting to be found. These secrets were not treasure chests filled with gold or jewels, but ancient writings, manuscripts that could change everything people thought they knew about early Christianity. For hundreds of years, these texts were lost, buried deep in the desert. But over the last 3 centuries, explorers and archaeologists digging in southern Egypt made a shocking discovery. In old caves and forgotten ruins, they uncovered fragile sheets of papyrus, written in a mysterious language called Coptic. This was the language used by early Egyptian Christians. When scholars began to read these ancient writings, they realized they had found something big. These were not just ordinary writings. They were sacred texts, but not the kind that people were used to reading in the Bible. These texts told stories and teachings that the early Christian church did not want people to know. Some even believed that powerful church leaders long ago had hidden or destroyed these texts on purpose. Why? Because what these writings said could turn the world's understanding of Christianity upside down. The Nag Hammadi discovery. The most famous discovery happened in 1945 in a place called Nag Hammadi, a dusty village in southern Egypt. A farmer digging in the dirt stumbled upon a large clay jar. Inside, wrapped carefully to survive time, were leather-bound books. But these weren't ordinary books. They were about 1,600 years old. When the books were opened, they revealed pages filled with strange and powerful ideas. These books were part of what we now call the Gnostic Gospels. Gnostic means knowledge or insight, and these writings focused on hidden spiritual wisdom. They were very different from the 4 Gospels people usually read in the Bible, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gnostic Gospels didn't just retell the life of Jesus. Instead, they focused on secret knowledge, deep spiritual truths about the universe and humanity's place in it. These teachings were so different from what people were taught in church that they shocked historians and religious scholars. One of the most important differences was how the Gnostics saw the world. The regular Christian belief said that God created the earth and called it good. But Gnostic writings described the material world as broken or even a trap. They believed there was something deeply wrong with the world we live in. A clash of beliefs. This is where the tension really began. For centuries, the Christian church had told one story. God created everything, including the earth. And it was all part of his perfect plan. But the Gnostic texts told a different story, and it upset church leaders. The Gnostics believed that our physical world was flawed and imperfect. They saw the world as a kind of prison, keeping human souls trapped inside bodies and away from the real, perfect spiritual world. For the Gnostics, the goal of life was not just to follow rules or go to church. It was to escape this flawed world. They believed that only by gaining secret knowledge, called gnosis, could a person free their soul and return to the higher spiritual realm where everything was pure and good. Because of these ideas, the early Christian church saw the Gnostics as dangerous. Their beliefs made people question the authority of the church and its teachings. So many church leaders worked hard to hide or destroy the Gnostic texts, hoping people would forget about them. But the desert sands of Egypt kept the secret safe until the modern age. The Gnostic universe, 2 creators. Now here's where the Gnostic story gets even stranger. The Gnostics believed in a very different version of how the world was created. In their writings, there wasn't just one creator like in the Bible. Instead, there were 2 powerful beings. First, there was the original creator, sometimes called the invisible spirit, or the supreme God. This being was beyond anything humans could imagine. He was perfect, pure, and full of spiritual light. He existed outside of the physical world, in a higher dimension beyond space and time. But then there was another figure, the Demiurge, also known as Yaldabaoth in some Gnostic texts. The Demiurge was not perfect like the original creator. In fact, the Gnostics believed he was flawed, ignorant, and even a little bit wicked. The Demiurge was the one who made the physical world, the earth, the sky, the stars, and everything we can touch. This was a shocking idea. According to the Gnostics, the Demiurge created the world without truly understanding the original creator's perfect wisdom. That's why, they said, our world feels so broken sometimes, full of pain, sickness, greed, and death. In this story, humans are like prisoners in a world built by mistake. But hidden inside every human is a tiny spark of the original creator's light, a part of the higher spiritual world. The Gnostics believed that this spark could be awakened through gnosis. Once awakened, a person could break free from the Demiurge's flawed world and return to the realm of the original creator, the 12 universes. The Gnostics also told a much bigger story about the universe itself. One of their ancient books, called the Sophia of Jesus Christ, introduced a mind-blowing idea. There wasn't just one universe, there were 12. According to this Gnostic text, the original creator didn't just create a single universe like we read in most religious stories. Instead, he created 12 perfect universes. Each of these universes had its own angel who watched over it, almost like a guardian. This idea shocked people who first read it. In most Christian and Jewish teachings, God created one universe, the one we live in. But the Gnostics believed reality was much more complex. They described a world made up of layers and dimensions that humans can't usually see. This idea of many universes sounds a lot like what modern scientists today call the multiverse, the theory that there might be countless universes, not just ours. In the Sophia of Jesus Christ, there's a key moment where everything changes. The text says, "The original creator created 12 universes for the procession of the 12 angels. All these were perfect and pleasing until the flaw in the subordinate developed." What does that mean? It means that all the universes were perfect, but then something went wrong. This flaw in the subordinate was the beginning of all the problems in the material world, leading to the creation of the flawed world ruled by the Demiurge. The Gnostics believed this flaw came from Sophia, a divine being who tried to create something on her own without following the original creator's plan. Her mistake gave birth to the Demiurge and the flawed physical world we know today. The cosmic mistake, Sophia's flaw. So let's go back to Sophia, the divine being in the Gnostic story. Sophia was not the original creator, but she was powerful. In Gnostic writing, Sophia's name means wisdom. But even wisdom can make mistakes. Sophia wanted to create something new on her own, but she acted without the knowledge or permission of the original creator. This action, as the Gnostics tell it, was the flaw in the subordinate mentioned in the Sophia of Jesus Christ. Sophia's decision to create without the original creator's guidance led to a disaster. What Sophia created was not what she intended. Instead of forming something perfect like the original creator's 12 universes, she accidentally gave life to a being called the Demiurge, the one responsible for making the flawed material world we live in. Sophia was shocked and horrified by what she had done. The Demiurge did not understand the higher spiritual world and began creating his own universe. But this one was far from perfect. It was filled with physical matter, limitations, pain, and suffering. For the Gnostics, this explained why the material world feels like a broken place, because it came from an imperfect source. the trap of the material world. To the Gnostics, the world made by the demiurge was like a prison. It was beautiful on the surface, but broken deep inside. Imagine a shiny toy that looks amazing, but doesn't work when you try to play with it. That's how the Gnostics viewed the physical world. The demiurge, believing himself to be the only god, created the stars, the earth, animals, and humans. But he did this without full knowledge of the original creator's perfect spiritual realms. According to Gnostic teachings, the demiurge was proud and ignorant, thinking he was the highest power even though he wasn't. The Gnostics believed that when the demiurge made humans, he accidentally gave them a spark of Sophia's original divine light. Inside every person, there was a tiny piece of the spiritual realm, a hidden piece of the perfect world beyond the stars. But the demiurge, jealous and fearful, did everything he could to keep humans trapped in the physical world. He built laws, systems, and illusions to make people forget who they really were, spiritual beings from a higher world. This is where the Gnostic belief becomes very different from the Christianity we usually hear about. Instead of seeing the earth as God's perfect creation, the Gnostics saw it as a flawed world humans needed to escape from. The battle between light and darkness. This created a deep divide between how the Gnostics and the Orthodox Church saw the universe. The Orthodox Church taught that God created the earth and called it good in the book of Genesis. But the Gnostics said, no, this world is a mistake, and the real God lives far beyond this material reality. For the Gnostics, life on earth was like being stuck in a dark cave, with only small hints of light showing the way out. The demiurge ruled this lower world like a jailer, while the original creator remained distant in the pure and perfect spiritual realm. But the Gnostics didn't think people were doomed forever. They believed there was hope. That hope came from Gnosis, hidden knowledge that could awaken the divine spark inside each person. If you could unlock this knowledge, you could rise above the lies of the demiurge and return to the original creator's perfect realm beyond the stars. So how did people find this Gnosis? Through teachings, spiritual practice, and a deep understanding of the real story behind creation. But there was more. Many Gnostics believed that special teachers like Jesus came to help reveal this secret knowledge to humanity. Gnostic teachings and modern science. Here's where the story gets even more surprising. Remember the 12 universes the Gnostics wrote about? That idea sounds strangely familiar to some modern scientific theories. Today, scientists talk about the multiverse, the idea that there could be many universes, not just the one we see when we look up at the night sky. Some scientists believe there could be countless worlds, each with different rules, dimensions, or even copies of us living different lives. The Gnostic story of 12 universes, each ruled by an angel, sounds a lot like this modern idea. They imagine the original creator building a giant cosmic system, full of different realms stacked like layers in a cake. The higher universes were perfect and full of light, while the lower realms, like the one ruled by the demiurge, were dark and flawed. But it wasn't just the multiverse idea that matched Gnostic beliefs. Modern quantum physics also describes a strange reality where particles can be in two places at once or behave in ways that seem impossible. Scientists studying quantum mechanics have said that the universe might not be as simple as it looks, and that hidden dimensions or realities could exist beyond what we can see or touch. For Gnostics, this matched their belief that reality is like a puzzle. Most people only see the surface, the broken material world made by the demiurge. But behind it all, there's a hidden system, a vast spiritual reality created by the original creator. The Gnostics felt they had discovered this hidden system through Gnosis, while most people were still trapped by the illusion of the physical world. human beings, prisoners and seekers. So what does this mean for people? The Gnostics had a very clear answer. They believed that human beings are not just bodies made of flesh and bone. Inside every person is a piece of the divine realm, a spark of light from the original creator hidden deep inside. But the physical world created by the demiurge acts like a cage. People live and die, experiencing pain, sickness, hunger, and sadness. According to Gnostic teachings, the demiurge wants people to stay trapped, focusing on material things like power, wealth, and survival. However, the spark inside each person has the potential to break free. The Gnostics believed that if someone could gain true knowledge, gnosis, they could awaken the divine spark and escape the cycle of being born, living, suffering, and dying in this broken world. In this view, human life is a kind of spiritual quest. Every person is like a traveler in a strange land, searching for the way home. The key to finding the path lies not in obeying rules or rituals, but in seeking hidden truths about the universe and about oneself. The Gnostics believed that once a person found gnosis, their soul could rise through the layers of flawed universes created by the demiurge and finally return to the realm of the original creator, the place of true light, wisdom, and peace. Jesus, the bringer of hidden knowledge. In the Gnostic story, there was one person who stood out as a guide, a teacher who could help people wake up from the illusion of the demiurge's world. That person was Jesus. But in the Gnostic texts, Jesus is not exactly like the Jesus we read about in the regular Bible. Yes, he is still a savior, but he is also something more, a messenger of hidden wisdom. The Gnostics believed that Jesus didn't just come to forgive sins or perform miracles. They said he came to teach secret knowledge, gnosis, that would help people break free from the material prison of the demiurge's world. To them, Jesus was like a lighthouse in a dark ocean, showing lost souls how to escape the storm and return to the peaceful shores of the original creator's realm. One Gnostic text, called the Gospel of Thomas, is filled with mysterious sayings from Jesus. Some sound very different from what most people hear in churches. For example, Jesus says, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all." What does that mean? The Gnostics believed this meant Jesus wasn't just a person sent by God. He was part of the light and wisdom that existed beyond the material world. He was both here and everywhere at once, connected deeply to the spiritual realms above. This was very different from the view of Jesus as just a human Messiah. To the Gnostics, he was a bridge between the broken world of the demiurge and the perfect universe of the original creator. Mary Magdalene, the secret companion. But Jesus wasn't alone in the Gnostic stories. One of the most surprising things in the Gnostic Gospels is how they talk about Mary Magdalene. In the Bible, Mary Magdalene is often remembered as a follower of Jesus. But in the Gospel of Philip, a Gnostic text, she is described as much more than that. The Gospel of Philip says, "The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene, but Christ loved her more than all the disciples." This shocked many people who read it, because it suggested that Mary Magdalene had a very special relationship with Jesus, one that was not mentioned clearly in the traditional Gospels. Some even think this means she was the closest person to him, closer than Peter, James, or John. In the Gnostic view, Mary Magdalene was a disciple who understood Jesus' secret teachings better than the others. She wasn't just a helper or a follower. She was a key part of Jesus' mission to share gnosis with the world. The Gnostic texts go even further. In the Gospel of Thomas, there is a strange and mysterious conversation where Jesus tells Simon Peter that Mary Magdalene will become like a male so that she may also become a living spirit like the male disciples. What could this mean? Some scholars believe the Gnostics were teaching that in the spiritual world, gender does not matter. What matters is the inner spark, the spiritual light inside. This teaching was very different from the views of the early church where men held most positions of authority. The Gnostics seemed to say that anyone, man or woman, could reach the highest levels of spiritual wisdom, challenging the church. The Gnostics didn't just change how people thought about Jesus or Mary Magdalene. They also challenged how people thought about the church itself. One of the boldest Gnostic writings comes from the Gospel of Philip, where it speaks about Christian practices, especially communion. In churches, communion is a sacred ritual where believers eat bread and drink wine to remember Jesus' sacrifice. But the Gnostics saw it differently. The Gospel of Philip actually calls this practice cannibalism. That's a strong word. Why did they say that? The Gnostics believed that focusing on physical acts like eating and drinking missed the deeper spiritual meaning of Jesus' teachings. To them, Jesus wasn't asking people to focus on his physical body and blood. Instead, he wanted people to find the secret knowledge that would free their souls. The Gnostics felt that church rituals were too focused on the material world. The very thing they believed was the demiurge's trap. Judas, the surprising twist. Perhaps one of the most shocking stories comes from the Gospel of Judas. In the Bible, Judas Iscariot is remembered as the ultimate villain, the disciple who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. But in the Gnostic Gospel of Judas, the story is turned upside down. Here, Jesus tells Judas to betray him. Instead of being the enemy, Judas is shown as the one disciple who truly understands Jesus' secret mission. The Gospel of Judas says that Judas was obeying Jesus' instructions when he handed him over to the authorities. This idea changes everything. If Judas was doing what Jesus asked him to do, then the betrayal wasn't an act of greed or evil. It was part of a larger plan to help free Jesus from the material world. According to this Gnostic text, Judas played a key role in allowing Jesus to complete his mission of bringing gnosis to the world. The Gospel of Judas also introduces new images of God, such as the luminous cloud of light that represents the divine realm. This cloud is far different from the personal and emotional God found in Orthodox Christianity. Instead, it is something abstract and deeply mysterious, a symbol of the higher hidden worlds the Gnostics spoke about, a different picture of early Christianity. As people studied more of the Gnostic writings, one thing became clearer. These texts showed a completely different side of early Christianity. Most people think early Christians all believed the same things about Jesus and God, but the Gnostic Gospels tell a different story. Instead of one single belief system, it seems that the early followers of Jesus were divided. There were different groups with different ideas about who Jesus really was and what he came to do. Some followed the teachings that later became known as Orthodox Christianity, the beliefs taught by the church we know today. But others followed the path of the Gnostics. The Gnostics believed Jesus was much more than just a man or a prophet. He was a messenger sent to reveal secret spiritual truths. The way the Gnostics saw it, Jesus didn't come just to save people from sin in the way the Orthodox Church described. Instead, he came to open people's eyes to the hidden structure of the universe, to show them that the material world was a kind of illusion or trap. This version of early Christianity shows that there were competing ideas about Jesus' role, the meaning of his teachings, and even the nature of God and creation itself. It suggests that early Christianity was not one single, simple faith, but a complex and sometimes conflicted movement. Different communities interpreted Jesus' message in unique ways. Some saw him as a spiritual teacher leading souls back to the light beyond the stars, while others focused more on his death, resurrection, and the forgiveness of sins. These disagreements were so serious that eventually powerful church leaders tried to silence the Gnostic point of view, suppressed teachings and hidden wisdom. So why did these Gnostic texts disappear for so long? Many scholars believe that early church leaders saw the Gnostic teachings as dangerous. The Gnostics taught that people didn't need priests, temples, or church rituals to reach God. They believed that anyone could find the divine spark inside themselves and connect directly with the higher spiritual realms through gnosis. This idea threatened the growing power of the official church, which was building rules, structures, and leadership systems. If people believed they could find God on their own without needing the church, it would weaken the church's authority. Because of this, many Gnostic writings were banned. Some were burned and others were hidden away in remote places like the caves near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, where they stayed untouched for more than 1,500 years. By the time they were rediscovered in 1945, most people had forgotten about these strange and powerful texts. But once found, these writings reopened old questions. What if early Christianity was more diverse than anyone had realized? What if the history people had been taught in church only told one side of the story? The Gnostic legacy today. The Gnostic Gospels didn't just change how historians viewed the past. They also began to influence how people think about faith and spirituality today. Many modern thinkers, writers, and spiritual seekers have been drawn to the Gnostic worldview because of its focus on personal discovery, inner wisdom, and the idea that reality is much more complex than it seems. Some people find it exciting that the Gnostics describe a world full of hidden layers where the physical universe is just the lowest level of a much larger and more mysterious cosmic system. This vision feels surprisingly modern. In fact, it reminds some people of today's scientific ideas, like the multiverse theory or quantum physics, where reality might be made up of multiple dimensions and unseen forces. The Gnostic idea that people are spiritual beings trapped in a flawed material world also matches the way some modern philosophers and spiritual movements describe life. The feeling that something about the world isn't quite right, that there is more to existence than meets the eye, is something many people today can still relate to. And while most churches today don't teach Gnostic ideas, the Gnostic Gospels have found new life outside traditional religion. They've inspired books, movies, and discussions about hidden histories, lost knowledge, and the search for truth beyond the surface of everyday life. A universe more vast than we thought. One of the most fascinating things about the Gnostic Gospels is how they stretch the imagination. The idea of 12 universes, each watched over by its own angel, sounds like something out of a science fiction story, but it came from texts written nearly 1,600 years ago. The Gnostics described a multi-layered cosmos, where beyond our own world are many more levels of existence, leading all the way back to the original creator's perfect realm. It's almost like the Gnostics were telling people, look deeper. There's more to reality than you can see. This idea has excited not only religious scholars, but also scientists and thinkers who wonder if modern discoveries about the universe might echo some of these ancient beliefs. Could the Gnostics have sensed something about the hidden structure of reality that we are only now beginning to explore through science. The soul's journey, escaping the material trap. The Gnostics didn't just stop at describing how the world was created or how it was flawed. They also explained what all of this meant for human beings. According to them, the human story was deeply connected to the larger cosmic drama between the original creator, Sophia, the demiurge, and the flawed physical universe. For the Gnostics, humans were not just ordinary creatures made of flesh and bone. They believed that inside each human body was something sacred, a divine spark that came from the original creator. This spark wasn't supposed to be trapped in the material world, but because of Sophia's mistake and the demiurge's flawed creation, it became stuck inside human bodies. In this view, humans are like spiritual beings who have forgotten where they truly belong. They live day after day in the physical world, surrounded by distractions, pain, and suffering, not realizing that their true home is in the higher, perfect spiritual realms beyond the stars. This Gnostic idea gave life a new and powerful meaning. Life wasn't just about survival, work, or even worship in the way the Orthodox Church taught. Instead, life was a spiritual quest, a mission to escape from the physical world and return to the original Creator's realm. The goal, gnosis and liberation. But how could humans break free from this prison? According to the Gnostics, the answer was gnosis, the hidden spiritual knowledge. Gnosis was not just book knowledge or learning rules from religious teachers. It was a deep, personal realization of spiritual truths, an awakening to the reality behind the illusion. When a person discovered gnosis, they would recognize that the world around them was flawed, and that their true self did not belong here. This realization would spark a process of spiritual transformation, helping them begin their journey back to the higher spiritual realm. The Gnostics taught that without gnosis, souls would stay stuck in the cycle of reincarnation, being born again and again into new bodies, trapped inside the material world of the demiurge. But with gnosis, a soul could finally break free and rise past the layers of flawed universes and return to the pure, perfect light of the original creator. For the Gnostics, this was the ultimate goal of life, to transcend the limitations of the physical world and return home to the divine realm. This teaching was very different from what the Orthodox Church taught at the time. The official church focused on salvation through Jesus' sacrifice, through faith, baptism, and obedience to the church's rules. But the Gnostics believed that true salvation came from knowledge and awakening, not from external rituals. Jesus, the light over all things. To help people reach this gnosis, the Gnostics believed that certain figures had been sent into the world to guide humanity, and the most important of these was Jesus. In traditional Christianity, Jesus is often described as the Son of God, who came to earth to die for humanity's sins. But in Gnostic texts, Jesus takes on another role as well, that of a teacher of secret knowledge. He came to reveal the hidden truths about the universe, the nature of the soul, and the spiritual trap created by the demiurge. In the Gospel of Thomas, one of the most famous Gnostic texts, Jesus says, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all." This powerful statement means that Jesus was more than just a prophet or even just a human being. The Gnostics believed he was a cosmic light, a being connected to the divine realm who came to awaken the divine spark inside each person. For the Gnostics, Jesus didn't just perform miracles or tell parables. He came to show people the truth about the universe. He taught that everything people saw around them, from the stars in the sky to the ground beneath their feet, was part of the demiurge's flawed creation. But above and beyond all of this, there existed a higher hidden world of light and perfection. Jesus was like a guide, a map, and a key all at once. His teachings were designed to help people wake up and remember their true origins, a new relationship, Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The Gnostic texts also told a different story about the people who followed Jesus. One figure who appears in many Gnostic writings is Mary Magdalene, and her role in these stories is very different from how she is presented in the traditional Bible. In the Gospel of Philip, for example, Mary Magdalene is not just another follower of Jesus. She is described as his closest companion. The text says, "The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene, but Christ loved her more than all the disciples." This statement shocked many readers because it suggests that Mary Magdalene may have played a more important role in Jesus' life and mission than many people have been taught. She is portrayed as someone who not only followed Jesus, but also understood his secret teachings more deeply than the other disciples. Some Gnostic writings hint that there may have been jealousy or conflict between Mary Magdalene and other disciples, like Peter. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus even suggests that Mary will become like a male in spirit, so that she too can fully enter the divine realm. To the Gnostics, this could mean that gender didn't matter when it came to spiritual awakening. What mattered was the inner spark of the divine. This view of Mary Magdalene stood in sharp contrast to the Orthodox teachings, where the leadership roles in the early church were almost entirely held by men. The Gnostics suggested that women could hold just as much spiritual power as men, and that Mary Magdalene may have been the first among the disciples to truly grasp Jesus' message, a challenge to the church's teachings. These ideas were dangerous to the early Christian church. If people believed they could reach God through their own spiritual awakening, and if women could be spiritual leaders alongside men, then the whole structure of church authority would be challenged. The Gnostic texts suggested that Jesus came not to build a powerful earthly church, but to help people find their own way back to the divine realm through gnosis. This message could free people from the control of religious leaders and empower them to seek truth on their own. That is why many believe the Orthodox Church worked so hard to silence the Gnostics and hide their writings. The Gnostic message was revolutionary. It told people that God was not locked away in temples or rituals, but already alive inside them, waiting to be discovered. The Gnostic view of Christian rituals. The Gnostics didn't just question who Jesus was or the nature of the universe. They also challenged some of the most important Christian practices of their time. One of these practices was communion, the sacred tradition where Christians eat bread and drink wine to remember the body and blood of Jesus. For most Christians, communion is a holy ritual. It's a way to connect with Jesus and remember his sacrifice. But in the Gospel of Philip, a Gnostic text, this ritual is viewed very differently and in a much more controversial way. The Gnostics saw communion as too focused on the physical world. They believed that performing an act that involved eating and drinking kept people attached to the material realm, the very world created by the demiurge that they were supposed to escape from. Even more shocking, the Gospel of Philip goes so far as to call this practice cannibalism. To the Gnostics, this wasn't just a rude insult, it was a serious criticism. They believed that focusing on eating the body and blood of Christ was missing the entire point of Jesus' teachings. In their eyes, Jesus didn't want people to be trapped by material symbols or physical rituals. Instead, he wanted them to focus on spiritual awakening and gnosis. In other words, the Gnostics felt that traditional Christian practices tied people even more tightly to the flawed world of the demiurge, rather than helping them break free from it. The Gospel of Judas, turning betrayal into a mission. But perhaps the most surprising and controversial Gnostic teaching comes from the Gospel of Judas. In this strange and mysterious text, Judas Iscariot, the disciple who betrayed Jesus in the Bible, is no longer the villain. Instead, Judas becomes the hero. In the Gospel of Judas, Jesus shares secret knowledge with Judas and asks him to help complete his mission. According to this text, Jesus tells Judas that by betraying him, Judas will help him escape his physical body and the material world created by the demiurge. Judas' so-called betrayal is actually presented as obedience to a higher plan. This version of the story completely flips the familiar tale. In the traditional Bible, Judas is remembered as the one who sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. But in this Gnostic text, Judas is the only disciple who fully understands Jesus' purpose. The other disciples are confused, stuck in the physical world, while Judas alone realizes that Jesus needs to leave his material body behind to return to the spiritual world of the original Creator. The Gospel of Judas also describes God using a powerful new image, the luminous cloud of light. Unlike the more personal God described in Orthodox Christianity, this vision of the divine is abstract and mysterious, more like a radiant force than a figure. Why these stories had her. The Gnostic teachings about Judas challenged everything the early church had taught about loyalty, betrayal, and salvation. If Judas was actually following Jesus' secret instructions, then the entire story of Jesus' death and the meaning behind it would have to be re-examined. The Gnostic version of Judas, along with their teachings about Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and the flawed material world, suggests that early Christianity was far more complex and divided than most people realize. Some Christians focused on sin, sacrifice, and church rituals. Others, like the Gnostics, focused on spiritual enlightenment, hidden knowledge, and the quest to escape the material prison of the demiurge. Even though these Gnostic ideas were pushed underground and forgotten for centuries, their rediscovery is still shaking up how historians and spiritual seekers view the early Christian world. Echoes in modern science, Gnosticism, and the multiverse. Today, when we hear scientists talk about the universe, we often hear wild and fascinating ideas like the multiverse. The theory that there may be many universes, not just one. This modern scientific idea sounds strangely familiar to what the Gnostics were saying nearly 1,600 years ago. In the Gnostic text, in the Sophia of Jesus Christ, there is a description of 12 universes, each one connected to an angel. This is very similar to the modern concept of parallel worlds or dimensions, which some physicists believe may exist. The Gnostics believed that these universes were created by the original Creator, but something went wrong when Sophia made the demiurge, who then created a flawed material world separate from the divine perfection above. To many people today, this sounds almost like science fiction, but it's not. These ancient texts, written on old papyrus scrolls and hidden in the Egyptian desert, seem to talk about a layered and mysterious reality, just like some modern physicists do when they describe hidden dimensions or alternate universes. Even more interesting is how the Gnostics described the material world, the physical universe we live in, as a kind of trap or prison. Modern scientists studying quantum physics have also discovered that reality may be stranger than it looks. In the quantum world, particles can be in two places at once, and hidden forces might shape what we see and don't see. While science and religion are very different, both Gnostic teachings and modern science suggest that reality might be deeper and more mysterious than what we experience with our five senses. A modern spiritual quest. But Gnostic teachings don't just echo science, they also continue to shape spirituality today. Many people in the modern world feel like there is more to life than what they see around them. Some feel disconnected from organized religion, but still believe there is a deeper truth behind existence. Gnostic writings, with their focus on personal enlightenment and inner wisdom, appeal to people who want to explore their spirituality outside of traditional religious systems. The Gnostics believed that everyone has the divine spark inside, and that through gaining secret knowledge, gnosis, they can awaken this spark and rise beyond the flawed material world. This idea is still very popular in modern spiritual movements. Many people today talk about awakening, spiritual enlightenment, or breaking free from illusions. These ideas can be found in books, meditation practices, and even in movies that explore hidden realities and alternate worlds. The Gnostics' belief that each person holds the power to find their own spiritual path, free from the control of religious authorities, is a message that still resonates with many people today, a living legacy. Even though the Gnostic texts were hidden and forgotten for over 1,000 years, they are once again alive and influencing modern minds. Whether through comparisons to cutting-edge scientific theories or as part of new spiritual searches for meaning, the ancient wisdom of the Gnostics continues to spark curiosity and debate. In a world where many people still wonder why there is so much suffering, why life sometimes feels unfair, or whether there is more to existence than meets the eye, the Gnostic story offers one answer. It tells us that we live in a flawed world, but that hidden within us is a key, the spark of a higher reality waiting to be rediscovered. The Gnostic Gospels leave us with a powerful and challenging question. What if there is more to the universe than we've been taught? What if the road to freedom lies within us all, waiting to be unlocked? A story without an ending. Yet, even though the Gnostic Gospels are ancient, their ideas still feel very fresh and mysterious today. In fact, the questions they raise don't seem to have clear answers, even after centuries of study. One of the most fascinating parts of their story is how much it leaves open to interpretation. The Gnostics didn't just present a new creation story or challenge Christian rituals. They asked people to think about their own existence in a completely different way. Are we simply bodies in a physical world? Or are we spiritual beings trapped in a lower realm, searching for a hidden truth that could help us break free? The modern seeker. Today, the spirit of the Gnostics lives on in people who feel there is something hidden behind the surface of reality. Many modern spiritual paths, from New Age beliefs to esoteric traditions, share the Gnostic focus on personal discovery, inner light, and a search for knowledge that leads to freedom. These ideas also appear in art, films, and literature. For example, movies that show characters waking up from illusions to find a deeper truth, like escaping a virtual world or realizing they've been trapped in a fake reality, often echo Gnostic themes. Even the feeling that modern society keeps people distracted and disconnected from their true selves is something the Gnostics warned about in their ancient writings. They believed that everyday life, with all its routines and worries, could blind people to their higher spiritual nature. Science and spirit, a strange harmony. Even though science and spirituality often seem like opposites, Gnostic ideas seem to strangely fit alongside certain scientific theories today. When physicists talk about hidden dimensions, parallel universes, or realities beyond our senses, it reminds people of the Gnostic belief in the layers of universes created by the original creator. Quantum physics, for example, has shown that particles behave in ways that don't make sense according to normal logic. Some scientists have said that reality itself may be like a cosmic illusion, where what we experience as real is just part of a much larger and hidden structure. Of course, science is built on experiments and evidence, while Gnosticism is based on ancient spiritual beliefs. But the fact that both sometimes point to a world that is deeper, stranger, and more complex than we thought is something many find fascinating. The search for the divine spark. At the center of the Gnostic story is the belief that inside each person is a spark of the divine. For the Gnostics, this spark is our connection to the original creator and to the higher realms of perfection beyond the material world. The message is simple, but powerful. We are more than we appear to be. The Gnostics taught that this spark could be awakened, but only through gnosis, personal knowledge and spiritual awakening. No church, temple, or religious leader could awaken it for you. It was up to each individual to begin their journey inward, to find the truth hidden beneath the surface of the world. This message still speaks to people today, as many continue to ask deep questions about who they are, why they are here, and whether there is a greater purpose behind life's joys and struggles, an ongoing mystery. The rediscovery of the Gnostic Gospels has challenged scholars, theologians, and seekers for decades now. These ancient texts show that early Christianity was not just a single voice, but a chorus of many competing ideas about God, the universe, and the soul's destiny. Even now, with all we know, there is still much left to explore. The Gnostic Gospels give us just a glimpse of a much larger, more mysterious world. Some say the Gnostics were ahead of their time. Others say they were rebels trying to offer an alternative to the growing power of the early church. Either way, their writings continued to open doors to new questions, new journeys, and new ways of thinking about life, the cosmos, and our place in it. The Gnostic influence on later mystical movements. As time went on, even though the Gnostic Gospels were hidden and largely forgotten, their ideas never fully disappeared. In fact, echoes of Gnostic thought can be found in many later mystical and spiritual movements throughout history. For example, during the Middle Ages, secretive groups like the Cathars in southern France carried beliefs similar to the Gnostics. The Cathars also believed that the material world was created by a flawed being, separate from the true, perfect God. Like the Gnostics, they thought that the physical world was a prison and that the human soul needed to escape it. Just like the early church opposed the Gnostics, it also opposed the Cathars. The Catholic Church even launched a crusade against them, determined to wipe out their teachings. Yet the basic Gnostic idea that there is a hidden truth behind the world and that salvation comes from inner knowledge continued to quietly survive. Secret societies and hidden knowledge. Later on during the Renaissance and even into the modern era, secret societies and mystical groups kept Gnostic-style teachings alive. Groups such as the Rosicrucians and certain branches of the Freemasons began exploring ancient wisdom, secret symbols, and spiritual enlightenment. While these societies had their own unique beliefs, many of their ideas sound like updated versions of Gnosticism. They too spoke about hidden knowledge, spiritual light, and the need to rise above the material world to find deeper truths. Some of these groups believed that ancient knowledge, much like the gnosis of the Gnostics, had been hidden away from the public. They thought that only through careful study and personal transformation could someone uncover these lost truths? The Gnostic story of awakening and returning to a higher reality fit well with these secret traditions, which also saw the world as a place of confusion and illusion. Gnostic ideas in modern pop culture. In more recent times, Gnostic ideas have even shown up in popular culture, especially in movies, books, and art. Have you ever seen a story where the main character realizes that the world around them is fake or an illusion? That's a Gnostic theme. For example, films like The Matrix are often seen as modern retellings of Gnostic ideas. In The Matrix, the main character, Neo, lives in a false digital world created by machines, which could be compared to the Demiurge. Only by waking up to the truth does he realize that his real self belongs to a higher reality outside the Matrix. Just like the Gnostics taught that people must wake up from the illusion of the material world, movies like The Matrix tell the story of someone breaking free from a false reality and finding hidden knowledge that changes everything. Other films, such as Inception or Dark City, explore similar Gnostic themes, hidden worlds within worlds, the search for truth beneath the surface, and the idea that reality might not be what it seems. A modern search for meaning. Even beyond entertainment, Gnostic ideas continue to shape how some people think about spirituality and self-discovery. Today, many people feel unsatisfied with simple answers about the world and are searching for deeper meaning. They may explore meditation, mystical teachings, or ancient wisdom from traditions like Gnosticism, hoping to unlock their inner light and escape what feels like a limited or confusing world. Gnostic thought teaches that we are all on a journey, whether we realize it or not. A journey to remember who we truly are and to find the path that leads back to the divine, to the original Creator's realm of perfection. The mystery continues. So, what does this all mean for us today? Are we just physical beings living in a random universe? Or are we spiritual beings who've forgotten where we came from? Are there truly hidden universes, lost knowledge, and cosmic forces behind everything we see? The Gnostic Gospels don't give easy answers, but they do offer a challenge to question the world around us, to look inside ourselves, and to seek out the spark of light that might be hidden deep within. And that is why, even after all these centuries, the story of the Gnostics is far from over. Diving deeper, the story of Sophia. Since Sophia plays such an important role in Gnostic cosmology, it's worth exploring her story in more detail. To the Gnostics, Sophia was a powerful being, part of the divine realm created by the original Creator. Her name means wisdom, and she was one of the eons, which are spiritual beings that exist in the highest realms of light, close to the original Creator. But even wisdom can make mistakes. The Gnostics believed that Sophia, acting out of a desire to create something beautiful on her own, attempted to bring forth new life without permission from the original Creator. However, because she acted alone and without the fullness of divine knowledge, her creation was imperfect. That creation was the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. Sophia's mistake is described as the cause of the rift between the spiritual and material worlds. The Demiurge, unaware of the higher realms and the original Creator, believed himself to be the supreme God. He then created the physical world, including the heavens, earth, and humankind. But this world was flawed, reflecting the imbalance from Sophia's original mistake. Sophia's sorrow. In the Gnostic texts, Sophia realizes the gravity of what she has done. She mourns and repents, and her sorrow becomes part of the cosmic story. Some Gnostic writings even describe Sophia becoming trapped within the lower worlds, sharing the fate of the divine sparks now imprisoned inside human beings. This adds another layer to the Gnostic worldview. The Gnostics believed that not only were human souls trapped in the material world, but Sophia herself was also suffering alongside them. In this way, Sophia became a symbol of both mistake and hope, because through Gnosis, both humanity and Sophia could be redeemed and returned to the realm of light. The role of Jesus